For most of early access, the World Tree was Palworld's most obvious unfinished thought. You could see it from almost anywhere, and the game kept insisting the towers were the key to reaching it, but an invisible wall stopped you before either idea really went anywhere. Full release finally lets us cross that wall. What we find connects the tree, the towers, and the civilization, whose ruins we've been stripping for parts since the beginning of the game. That civilization was destroyed by an event remembered as the Calamity. Inside the World Tree, we actually find two people connected to it. Zenara, a researcher from the civilization, and Astralym, which is the creature she hid from the civilization's ruling council. The game directly associates Astralym with the disaster. By the final fight, its boss title card calls it the Calamity. What the game does not explain is how it became one. Zenara's surviving research gives us the beginning of that story. Astralym reproduces by drawing energy from a planet and replacing its matter with more of itself. If the process continued, it would eventually consume all of Palpagos. But the Astralym in her recordings is actively resisting it. The creature can speak to Zenara, appears to understand what it's doing, and suppresses the process even though it depends on the process to survive. Now, at this point, Astralym is fighting the exact instinct that will later destroy the planet. The council eventually discovers that Sinara has been hiding it. A suppression team is sent in and they attempt to contain Astralym with a device called the Key Sphere. The sphere fails though. The team decides to kill Astralym instead, and the recording ends in screams. Zenara's next surviving message comes after the operation. Her position has completely changed now. She tells Astralym to burn the planet with her. The story skips over the only part we actually need though. One recording gives us an Astralym starving itself to protect the planet, and then the next gives us Sinara asking it to destroy the planet. By the time we arrive, the result is remembered as the Calamity, and that gap is where the towers became relevant. Every tower leader guards a key sphere, and the complete set opens the prison, holding Sinara and Astralym. Each sphere is named after a sin and carries an inscription describing it. The game has attached 8 accusations to 8 pieces of the same lock. That alone does not tell us who those accusations are necessarily aimed at, but when the inscriptions are placed in tower order beside Zenara's recordings, they follow the same chain of decisions that takes Astralym from resisting the Calamity to becoming it. The towers may be preserving the missing part of the story as a sequence of sins. The player's been gathering that sequence piece by piece, carrying it straight back to the people it condemns. The trail begins with Zoe. After you defeat her, the main story establishes that 8 towers stand across the islands with one sphere sealed inside of each. Every tower victory adds another sin to your inventory. Envy, pride, sloth, greed, gluttony, lust, wrath, and original sin. 8 factions with completely different agendas are guarding matching parts of an ancient device. Whatever the towers mean now, their leaders inherited pieces of the same older problem. Every sphere is described as a relic that probably belonged to a massive machine. Beyond that, the towers invite more speculation than the text can really support. The game never really identifies them as an energy grid or says that they originally powered the World Tree, but what we can trace is who kept the spheres. Zoe protects her tower largely because her father did. Seiya's people maintained the same responsibility after its reason was forgotten. They inherited the job long after the explanation disappeared. Auri knows where the trail ends. After the 8th tower, she sends the player toward the Calamity at the World Tree's core. The final quest instruction is direct. Use the key spheres to release the seal. An older recording describes a team failing to seal Astralym with a single key sphere. The later 8-part device may have grown out of that failure, but the game never really provides the engineering history of how they accomplished this. But we don't really need it. 8 spheres leave 8 towers, return to the World Tree, and open the Calamity cell. The accusations travel with them, and those accusations start making sense once Zenara discovers what Astralym actually is. Astralym does not begin as a 6-winged monster we see waiting for us in the final arena. Zenara's first diary describes a small, limbless white creature that crash-landed at the base of the World Tree. She assumes it's a juvenile and begins studying it. Its biology is strange, even by Palworld standards. Astralym has no observable mouth, digestive system, or reproductive system. Other pals may be mysterious, but they still possess the basic equipment needed to survive. By her 4th entry, Zenara calls Astralym a terraforming terminal. She says it draws energy from the planet, converts that energy inside its body, and then replaces existing matter with tissue that resembles its own. Zenara is unusually specific here. Astralym absorbs a planetary energy as it grows, changes the power into an unknown form, and then uses it to overwrite any known material. In her words, it consumes and reconstitutes the planet, and in doing so, reproduces. Astralym doesn't need to chew through a forest, it reaches underneath the forest. The planet itself becomes the fuel and raw material for another Astralym. That's how it reproduces. The missing anatomy suddenly makes perfect sense. This creature can erase a biosphere without ever having to touch anything that really lives there. It only just has to complete its natural life cycle. Long before anybody attacks Astralym, Palpagos is facing an extinction level event. Intense almost beside the point here. If the process continues, the world becomes another Astralym, whether the creature feels guilty about it or not. But something weird happens. Astralym's not just an unthinking machine. After growing to a massive size, it begins speaking directly to Zenara's mind. Zenara concludes that it bears no ill will. She is hardly neutral, referring to it as Little Astralym, while hiding her findings and fearing the council will either kill the creature or weaponize it. Her judgment of its intentions deserves some caution. The next diary gives us behavior instead. Astralym is suppressing its energy absorption, even though doing so causes it agony. It understands that feeding will harm the world around it, and for a time, that knowledge wins. Holding back is not a cure. Sinara compares it to suppressing a natural bodily function, which means the pressure is still there and getting worse. Astralym is buying her time at its own expense. Zenara searches for an answer involving the World Tree, but her surviving notes never explain the full plan. Meanwhile, Astralym cannot starve forever. The tree has begun losing leaves, and Zenara has concealed an extinction-level problem from everyone expected to solve it. Palpagos is already in danger. Astralym just hasn't chosen the Calamity option yet. So eventually the public sees the World Tree withering and connects the damage to Zenara's White Dragon. Some even suspect the Council intends to weaponize it. Their fear is reasonable, honestly. Astralym's draining planetary energy, Zenara was hiding what she knew about it, and the symbol holding the civilization together is now visibly dying. The Council also wants to look at control, so its members freeze Zenara's project without consulting her and order the dragon neutralized in a, quote, highly visible manner. Their thinking is that if they can parade the result before the public, people will feel more confident in the council. One council member suggests notifying Zenara. The response is immediate. There is no time to debate a naive researcher. Cut her loose and proceed. The person who understands Astralym best is then excluded from the operation. Apparently, the confidence-building exercise is a live test of experimental sealing technology on the telepathic dragon currently eating the planet. Pretty reassuring plan, right? I cannot imagine why the crowd was so nervous. The field recording is brief. The key sphere was supposed to seal any life form, but it doesn't take. One soldier mocks the researchers for making promises that only work in theory, while others risk their lives. Their orders allow neutralization by any means necessary, so they decide a corpse should satisfy the people above them. They blame Astralym for resisting. A few seconds of violent noise and indistinct screams follow, and the recording stops. The log never says this operation single-handedly caused the calamity. Astralym's hunger was already damaging the tree. Zenara had kept that danger secret, and her proposed solution may never have worked. So the council did not invent the crisis. It took a crisis that required patience, expertise, and probably a miracle, and then handled it as a show of force. But look at the order. Before the operation, Astralym is forcing itself not to feed. During the operation, the civilization tries to seal it, and then decides to kill it. Afterward, Zenara is writing on scorched paper while houses collapse and people are consumed around her. She asks what either of them did to deserve the attack. Then she admits that she feels liberated. She catches herself smiling and calls to Astralym, inviting their shared wrath to burn the planet to ash. Her earlier diaries are obsessed with finding a path where everybody survives. On the scorched page, she stops looking. Coexistence has narrowed until it means only the two of them, and this is where Zenara loses me. I understand why she's furious. The council shut her out, mocked her ideals, and turned the operation into a public spectacle. None of that makes the people dying around her responsible, though. Yet she sees the cost and asks for more. Zenara has chosen revenge. The remaining question is whether Astralym chooses it with her. If you're enjoying the video so far, be sure you like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot, and it costs absolutely nothing. To learn more about the Calamity, we actually have to talk to someone who was there. Auri is an ancient protector of Sunreach and the gatekeeper to the World Tree. She's ancient and different from the other Tower Guardians. Auri experiences the Calamity from Sunreach. By the time she senses it, the civilization spread across the island is already being extinguished. Most of the surface is burned and the source is tearing through the sky, intent on bringing ruin to Sunreach. Astralym is no longer feeding where Zenara found it. It's crossing the sky toward a populated stronghold. Auri abandons her rule against interfering with short-lived humans and fights. She splits lakes, shatters hills, and sacrifices a huge section of land. But Astralym just keeps drawing power from the planet, and Auri nearly dies because beings who are rooted deeply in the world's life force are especially vulnerable to Astralym's presence. Now that creates a nasty trap. The more closely a defender is connected to Palpagos, the more Astralym can drain from them. Auri brings enough power to rearrange the landscape and still finds herself becoming fuel for the things she's fighting. Bjorn's account tells us how many others failed. A thunder dragon, 2 celestial beings, and a noble paladin joined the resistance, but they still cannot destroy Astralym. Their desperate measures leave behind the endless winter night, the vanished black Pegasus, and the paladin divided in 2. Those details connect the Calamity to scars that remain across modern Palpagos. The old legends are not separate monster stories happening near the main plot. They're memories of several powerful beings throwing everything they had at the same enemy and losing. Human children and their pals eventually seal Astralym inside the World Tree. Auri survives because of them. The civilization does not. Originally, I treated Astralym's willingness as the missing step in the theory. We could see restraint before the suppression and an attack on Sunreach afterward, but we never heard it agree to Zenara's revenge. Astralym's Paldeck entry actually answers that. Astralym says it never wanted to hurt anyone, it only wanted to remain with Zenara. But because their bond was forbidden, and neither of them would be forgiven, it decided, I wanted a world for just the 2 of us. The wording is personal. Astralym does not describe losing control or being forced to feed. It describes feeling rejected and then making a decision about what kind of world it wants. That leaves very little room to call Astralym a passive victim of its biology. After trying to resist, it accepts a world emptied of everyone except Zenara. So, when I describe Zenara turning Astralym into a weapon of revenge, I'm not claiming mind control. She doesn't create its power. She embraces the destruction and asks Astralym to continue. And Astralym decides it wants the same empty world. The Calamity is something they choose together. I tried reading all 8 key spheres as a perfect coded timeline to this story, but they really don't cooperate very well. Envy comes first to the tower route. Original Sin comes last. Nothing identifies the inscription writer, and 3 of the sins only connect to Zenara or Astralym if we really force them to. 5 inscriptions are but stronger though. Gluttony condemns devouring the lifeblood of the stars without satisfaction. That fits Astralym's planetary feeding and Auri's warning that it continues consuming the World Tree even while sealed. Original Sin condemns a being whose birth denies all other life. A new Astralym can only emerge by replacing an inhabited planet with more Astralym tissue. Its birth is the extinction event. Those 2 accused Astralym of what it was born to do. But pride condemns arrogantly seeking coexistence and bringing forth the Calamity. Coexistence is Zenara's life's work, the same ideal the Council mocks before removing her. Greed speaks of rejecting fate in pursuit of another's bond. Zenara refuses the apparent choice between Astralym and Palpagos. Astralym may be included too. It first resists its life cycle to stay with her, then wants a world where nothing can separate them. Wrath condemns surrendering to rage and spreading death without end. Zenara's final message practically acts out the inscription. The other 3 are shakier though. Sloth may fit Zenara's abandoning humanity. Less forbidden knowledge could point toward her secret research. Envy blames resentment of human prosperity, yet no diary or Paldeck entry really seems to say that Astralym felt that way. I'm comfortable leaving those unresolved though. The theory doesn't really need them. Gluttony and Original Sin describe the disaster built into Astralym's body. Pride, greed, and wrath follow their attempt at coexistence until it collapses into mutual revenge. By the final door, the player's holding the ancient civilization's lock and what remains of its verdict. The hunger was there from birth. Unless somebody interrupted Astralym's life cycle, Palpagos would be consumed. But the Calamity was a choice. Sinara watched her civilization burn, and then called for the planet to go along with it. Astralym admitted wanting a world for only the 2 of them. The Council did not invent the extinction problem, and Zenara did not invent Astralym's power. The Council mishandled a genuine crisis. Sinara and Astrelim answered by turning everyone else into the enemy. We still don't know who wrote the spear inscriptions, or how Zenara's World Tree solution was supposed to work. The game also withholds the conversation in which Astralym abandoned restraint. Its Paldeck tells us the decision was made, but not every step leading up to it. What the evidence shows is that Zenara helped turn Astralym's involuntary hunger into a deliberate revenge tour, and Astralym chose to participate. That recasts the tower journey. Each victory removes one part of an ancient safeguard. We collect the accusations, reopen the cell, and finish the fight the survivors could only postpone. Defeating Sinara and Astrelim ends this calamity. It doesn't explain where Astralym came from, though. Zenara's research says it's not native to the planet. It arrived as a juvenile with a reproductive process built to convert worlds into more of its kind. Palworld never confirms another Astralym exists. This one still came from somewhere. Palpagos survived the Astralym that tried to starve itself before deciding it wanted an empty world. If another one ever arrives, we have no reason to expect it to hesitate.